Okay, so I'm going to discuss to you about the object-oriented programming in PHP and also securing your um, project structure so that you add a layer of security into it. So I have here my full project containing different directories. I'm going to go over them individually in this discussion. But before that, I'm going to discuss to you about protecting your file directory. So I have here a .htaccess. It's basically a configuration file that tells the Apache web server how are we going to uh, deal, or how are we going to respond, or how it's going to respond to user requests. So technically it's just here what we did here is we want that the user can only access um, the index.php here. It's basically the entry point of our application, and also those um, files inside even the files inside the subdirectory in this public directory. So we have images, JavaScript, and later on you can also use CSS. Okay, so everything here are just accessible directly via the browser, okay, to the user. And everything else we want to manage how our project serve those other resources, okay, like views and so on and so forth. Okay, now, so that's the purpose of this. So basically this condition and right rule uh, makes our program to only allow access to public images. This one is for the public JS for JavaScript. This one is for the CSS, okay, and also for our storage slash images, okay, because we want to use this directory to save our um, images, okay, especially like image for a record that's connected for a record. Okay, so this one also, okay, we're going to rewrite the request to go to the public slash index dot php all other except this request, which is we have indicated just this one. Okay, so what does this do? We're going to uh, it's like reroute. It's like reroute when we are, for example, when the user is accessing autoload, includes autoload.php, config.php, all those other uh, requests will be rerouted to public slash index. So if we're going to do that, okay, because if we're going to do that, if you're going to visit any site that's not allowed, for example, I have here, I'm going to have whatever link here, or maybe the actual file, like include, let me just increase my, okay, I cannot increase this one. Okay, I should be able to increase this one, but let me have includes slash autoload.php. Nothing. It rather makes me, or maybe let me just log in. Okay, let me log in. You'll have that one. And let me access includes autoload.php. You cannot do that. Okay, you cannot find that because I have defined a list of routes or site that the user can only access in my page. Okay, I'm going to show you that later on. So it cannot find that even though we have that file. So basically, it's the htaccess that provide that mechanism. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do now is the entry point. In the entry point, I have set here okay, all my logic, okay, that my program will perform whenever the user visit the site, okay, visit the site. So if it's going to visit a site that I don't want him to visit, or meaning it's not set in the available routes, then it's just going to display the page you're looking for doesn't exist, or for offer not found. I'm going to show you later on where did I set that. Okay, it's in here. So we're going to go over them one by one. So what we have here basically are the include files. Okay. Before that, I have the session start. We need this for keeping of session or managing sessions. You always have to do that. I just used this once, okay, in this entry point. I do not remember calling session start anywhere. Okay, so because all requests are rerouted in this single file. Okay, all requests are rerouted in this single file. Okay, now I have import codes here. I'm just importing every necessary files that I have, like my config, which is located in here, config, and also the config.php. Okay, it just contains the base URL and then JW2 secret key. We're going to learn what's this later on. Okay, but I place here the base URL, meaning it's the base path of my URL, which is my project. Okay, I did this because when I rename this, then there's just only one place to change it. I'm just going to change it here. Okay, if I rename my folder, because you can rename that later on. And also in here, you have also to rename it all to the folder that you are going to use later on. And basically, this whole project be placed inside the htdocs of your SAMP, okay, directory. Okay, you just put it in there. And I know and I think that if you're going to use the PHP development server, it's this just going to be ignored. So you just have to place it in the some htdocs folder. Okay, now going back in the public slash index, which is the entry point, I also included the autoload. Now let me discuss this autoload. What's the purpose of the autoload? It's in the includes that directory. Um, just take time later on to read this, but the function of this is to automatically include, okay, the files when I'm calling a class, when I'm going to instantiate an object of a class, or instantiate a class, or instantiate an object of a class. For example, the user class, um, home controller or controller class. So I'm going to use the keyword use. I'm going to show you later on. Let me just show you an example. I think I have one in the index. This one. This is used to import. This is similar to your Java. If all of you have learned Java, I mean most of you, okay, because we use that as a starting language. Okay, so use is the counterpart for the import. If I'm going to do this, my autoload will know that this is located in the directory app slash models rather slash user dot php, because as you can see in here, okay, what I did is I reversed the backslash with the forward slash to convert it to the real directory separator, and I also added the .php in there. Okay, so that when I use the keyword use, I know where to pick that up. Okay, that's the purpose of the autoload uh, .php, which calls the function spl autoload register. It's going to automatically include those classes, isn't it? You cannot use a variable, a class, or anything if that is missing and it is located in a separate file. You have to include it first. That's the purpose of this. You just have to read all of the component of this. I'm just going to leave that with you. I'm not going to discuss that for to just minimize the time that I'm going to use in discussing this. Okay, that's the purpose of that. And another thing that I included in the index is Global functions. So I included also global functions. These global functions I can call anywhere in my program, be it in the file that is in here or in the views. I can use them because they are. We have the route URI. The route URI is just convert my route, okay, into full path so that it is automatically formatted, and it will be accepted with it will be accepted by my browser when I load them. That's the purpose of my route. I did forget to add comments here. I just added the base URL, which is the project name, and then dash the the URI itself that I'm trying to call, or the name of the route. Technically, this is the name of the route. When I say route, it's a location in your application or in your web project that you can visit. I also have a global function user that's just retrieve the current log user if there is one. Okay, so I'm just calling the class user with a static function, and the way you do that is double dot for static methods or functions. In Java, it's just similar with that. Okay, so this is for static, and the other one is this one. Okay, so this is the non-static, okay, or object. This one is static call. I mean, this is static call or static, what do you call this? If you're going to call a static member, you use this. If you're going to call an object member or an instance member, you use this. Okay, I know that you are already aware of those terms. Okay, so I'm just instantiating of the class user. Basically, this one, if I'm going to use, basically, I can use the keyword use here. Use app slash models, then user. Uh, okay, I cannot do it here. Maybe, let me try. Yeah, similar with your Java, you can only use it on top or maybe outside, outside of the function. Okay, and then I can just omit this because I already imported it. Okay, so that's just the same. But let me restore it back. Okay, and I also have the asset. Asset is just a way of like route. I am formatting my assets that I'm going to uh I'm going to include in the file in the HTML, like the JS or the CSS. I'm just going to show you later on where did I place it, and you can basically edit this for images, okay, because we have images also in the public. I just include JS and CSS here, okay. And as you can see, let me remind you that these are just the directory that can be accessed also in the browser along with the index. This is needed for loading static files like images, JS and CSS. Okay, so let me just close that. I'm not going to save it. And then here are the imports. I'm getting the URI. I am cleaning it. Okay, I'm cleaning it, and um I am also importing, but not importing in the sense like this, but I am including like requirements. I'm using requirements in a method way because this is just legal. Okay, this or that one is just the same thing. But what I do here is I am passing its content, whatever in that, into a variable because the content of these routes is like this. Let me show you my routes. My routes here, config that routes. That's just it. Okay, it's just a collection of routes or the places that I can visit. I can place them here. Okay, if you are going to edit this later on, if you're going to use this later on, you just place in here all the routes that you want your user to visit. Okay, it should begin with forward slash. And going back, I'm assigning it to a variable because I have a return here. I'm returning an array, okay? Per endpoint or route, the value, this is a key, and the value is this, is just another array. The first component, okay, the first component of the array is the uh, fully qualified name. They call it fully qualified name of the class, which is This one, the value of this is just this one. If you're going to echo the value of that, this is the result. It's the whole path of the class. Okay, that's it. If you're going to call this one, it's basically a built-in static function. Okay, for classes in Java. I did not make this. This is built in. And then this one, it is the function. Okay, this is the function inside this because these are just class. For example, home controller. Okay, this is just the function we have there. The first is index. Index corresponds to the route second element in here. That's just it. Okay, there should be the same, they should be the same, case sensitive. I just program it that way. That's the usage of that, because there's a place I'm going to use this later on. I'm going to show you. So I get this and place them in the route you know, variable. Now let me skip this thing. I'm going to discuss this later on during the authentication part. And the purpose of the route is here, okay? And in here, I'm checking if the requested site is in the right routes, in the list of routes. For example, if I'm going to go to what one of the routes is, for example, users, /users, I'm going to go here. Let me remove that one. That's the base URL. This is the home basically. If I'm going to go to users, I'll get that. Okay, we'll have a table for users because it's available in the routes. Okay, otherwise if I'm going to visit a site that is not included in the routes, going to have for offer not found, because the logic here is like this. Okay, if this is false, if that is false, meaning whatever route that I type in the browser address bar is not located in the list of routes, I'm just going to call the function of error controller, which is, what does it do here? Error controller, I'm just creating an object of error controller. What does it do? Not found. Not found. This one is just going to render a file. Now I'm going to skip that because I'm going to discuss about view separately later on. Okay, that's what it do. Now if the route is available, then I'm going to proceed and check. Okay, I have to make sure that there are 2 elements in my route. Okay, that's the purpose of that. There is the first one, the full path of the class, and then the function in it in a string format. Okay, and then I'll get okay, if I'm going to visiting the site via a form or in a post method, something like that, I can also get all those data, place them. Okay, I'm going to place them in a variable, which is the params. Okay, here I'm checking if the request method is get or post, so that if it's get, I'm going to get all of its content and place it in a param, in the param. Okay, yeah, yes, I'm just creating a different, or maybe I can just, no, I'm just leave it like that. Okay, and if it's pause, the method is pause, then I'm going to get all the content in, place it in the params variable. Okay, then that's the purpose of that. And also, going back here, I'm extracting the component of the route. The first is the controller class. This is the controller class. The second is the controller action or function that is defined in the class. Okay, now I can instantiate a new object of that just like this. Okay, this is something different because in PHP you can store the name of the class in a variable. Okay, and followed by this. It's so cool. You cannot do that in Java. Okay, so this is, for example, the content of this is user, then I'm just instantiating a new object of the user, and that's the controller. Okay, because below, okay, before I go below, these are just another capturing another way, or no, another places where I can capture content of the request. Like if I'm uploading, do you remember that files information are placed in the files global variable, and I'm just getting its content and place them in the params. I am merging it basically because there are also post data along with the files. So if you want to not make them lost. Another, later on, this is just about JSON, and I'm just going to discuss that later on, the JSON part. Okay, let me skip. Then afterwards, okay, when I'm done with that, I can use the built-in function called userfunc. Okay, with a callback. The callback basically is an array. The first one is the object. Okay, this is the object, and you can also do, but it's different on calling static members. But this is static, non-static way. Okay, non-static meaning it's an object. Okay, we are using object. So this is the object which we have instantiated here, like new user, and then this is the or controller. Basically these are for controllers, okay, because everything here are controllers. That's the naming convention, and I will go later. I will go on later. I will go on that later on about controller. Okay, going back here, I'm going to call user func, which is basically I am going to execute the function of that class by using this call user func. I can do that. Usually, the way we call a method is something like this, right? But there's another way to call a function in PHP. You use let me just remove this one. You just use the call user func and then pass in an array, a combination of first the object. This should be instantiated as an object. And then this is the method. It's like doing controller. Basically, you can do this. This is illegal. This is legal rather. Action. Okay? Like that. This basically is the counterpart of this. But I did call user function. Okay, I think this is just one way of doing this. Let me just test. I just did not test it out. Okay, if that will work. Okay, let me try my home. It's still working because this is just the counterpart of this. Okay, but let me just use that one. Okay, so this is just this one. Let me just add that comment here for your reference. Same as this. So what we do here, we are calling the function by this object, which is the one that has it as its member, and then I'm passing the parameters. Okay, parameters, those are the arguments that you pass on method invocation. Okay, if none of those checking are right, then I'm just going to show error pages. Okay, the error pages is just handled by the error controller. Okay, we're done with that. Now let's go to the topic of MVC format. So because I did this in an MVC way, MVC model, view, and then controller. Okay, just disregard helpers right now. It's basically the core component of this. It's an architecture I discussed it in the class. MVC, you are separating the codes of different concern. Like you have model basically pertains to your data or the connection of your program with your database. Basically, they contain classes that relates to your database or data, not necessarily database. That's model. Okay, it pertains about data. Okay, next, controllers. This is basically the middleman or the driver. It basically, what it does is, the typical scenario is controller get data from the model and pass it to the view in order for it to render or display it. So in other words, this is where you place your business logic or logic of your application. And then the view just contains, HTML files. Okay, because that pertains to what the users see on their end or what's being rendered on the screen. But I'm going to have a example later on of how they are used. Okay, that's just the relationship between the three. And sometimes views can accept input, like for using form, give it to the controller sanitize it, validate it, and then uses the model to save the data. That's just the relationship of the three. Now let's go and let's look at the controller. The first one that I have here is the home controller. The home controller um, is used by routes um, slash, which is home, of course, and it's also used with a sample API request, because I have a sample API request here for already that you can use in your React Native development. Okay, so I have here, for example, let's examine the first route. Okay, if I'm visiting this forward slash or the home, this will be executed. The content of that is this one. Okay, before I go here, let me just discuss this controller. It's just a class, okay? Class home controller, and it extends, okay? It's similar to your Java keyword, extends controller. I am basing from the base. I am basing or extending the base controller, okay? And also I have your names. Please do not forget this. This is important to the autoloader. This is important to the autoload that I have shown you a while ago, this one. If you did not place that, there will be an error. So every classes, you have to indicate the namespace, okay? The format is just where it is, app. You just capitalize this because it is in the app folder, slash the folder that it is in. Like for my model, it would be app and then models, because it resides in models and then app. That's just a pattern. Okay, let me go back to home controller. It also extends controller. So controller houses all the things that is common among controllers. Okay, that can just be extended by subclasses like this one. So let me just show you the controller. It just contains all functions and properties that I can reuse in the subclasses, like setting up the layout, page title, the one that you see in here, this one, page title, route, what is the current route right now? I just used that. I do not remember if I did use it somewhere, but I just placed it in here. Yeah, because I haven't placed it here. We also have the CSRF token to avoid or protect our forms or our sites that consume data from XSS attack. We also have the home URL. I just use it somewhere else, but this is not necessary. You can basically tweak all of this. Errors for validating the form, okay, and also asset list. Asset list is used for, I think I did not use that. I just remember I did not use that. This is different. I'm just going to remove that because I did not use that anyway. Okay. And then the constructor. In Java, PHP, this is how you write the constructor. Okay. Public function should be public, and double underscore, and then the keyword. It's not keyword. It's construct. You cannot change that one. Okay. It's built in. Okay. And function for generating CSRF. This is just a encrypted string, okay, that we pass to the form. I'm going to show you later on where it is used. Validating to check whether the request is valid, especially when submitting form. View basically is used to render a view file that is located in here. I'm going to show you how it's used later on. And then redirect, if I'm done with, for example, saving a form, I want to redirect it somewhere else, then I just use this one. And this is static. I'm going to call it using static later on. That is controller, the base, which is extended, or yeah, extended by the home controller. Let me go now here in the index. What does it do? I'm just setting the page title there. And afterwards, I am rendering. I am calling the parent function view, and I'm passing what it is passing. I am passing the folder home, which is located in the view folder, this one, and then the file, excluding that PHP because that's automatic. I'm going to show you why it's like that. This is the file. Make sure that this is the same to be safe, same casing. Home and then index. The index is just everything that you show here, you see here. These are just dummy data that you can base from later on. Okay, these are not basically from coming from the database. Those are hard coded and it look like this. I'm using Tailwind already. You can base from those design. Okay, that's the index. Before I discuss the content of this, I'm going to go back here. Okay, wait. Where is the home controller already? This one. Okay, and the view function accepts a not required. This is not basically required. Another parameter. It's just an array. I can place everything here. Like I can place a data here. Like for example, I have a data. Some data. Okay, and I can pass it here. That data, whatever, you can use any key, because what does it do? This data is let me go to the view. What does this view do? It's basically in the base controller. This one, this is what it do. This basically of course accept the name of the view, which is the path of the view folder and file, and then um what do you call this? Not not required. Okay, what's the other word for not required? Forgot it. Okay, not necessary. Okay, not necessary, or yeah, it's not required because we have a default value, but default value is blank. Okay, because these params, I am doing extract here. Okay, what does this do? I am converting the array into variables and value pair. Okay, because this is how it works. I have passed a data there. This will become, where is the file? This will become like that here. Okay, so I can echo that. You will see. That's the purpose of the function extract. Let me show you again. This extract here is going to convert this. Basically, it's passed as a reference. It's going to convert that associative array into variable and value pair. So that one can be accessed later on in my index file as this one. If I'm going to save and show you, we'll have it there, some data, the one that I pass from my controller. So basically, you pass data, one of the best practice way of passing from controller to data is you pass it like this one. Okay, because technically you can access I have here, right? What it does here at the bottom of this, okay, I am just including those view files. Okay, I'm programmatically putting the extension PHP file. So I'm just including them here. Okay, then this is the view, the one that is passed in there. Basically, I have two things that I include here. I have the main view file and then the layout. Okay, I'm going to discuss to you later on the layout. It's a different view file. But let me go back here. So I am just converting those array into variables. Try that one. So whatever you have here, you can just basically create variables here. Okay, and then whatever in the view file, you can access that as sdf. Okay, in there. That's the usage of that. You can just experiment that. That's the job of the extract function. I am also passing the content of this token. I'm using them in forms. Okay, using them in forms for protection. Error if there are validation error, and then the page title, the one that you see here. I am just converting them into plain variable rather than object properties. Also the asset list, the list of JS or CSS that I want to include in my file. And the way I did with this one, it's very different. I'm using a output buffering. What does it do? I this one captures any output generated by the included view file. So whatever the output of this, I'm going to capture that, and everything I'm passing them in here when I call the object clean. Okay, eventually. So basically, the content of this is the the output of this file. And let me discuss this. Why I did this? I forgot to discuss this. There refers to the current file, which is, where is that? It's in here. This is the current file, controller. And then going back, that's the controllers further. That's the purpose of this. Okay. Now, with that controllers, it's already, uh, with that controller directory already here, it has the sibling view. Okay. That's why we have the view here. And then the view file, which is whatever its variable, like if it's home index, it's going to read this one, or it's going to access this one, home, and then index, and then I just add that PHP there. Okay, and then I also, the last thing that I included here is the layout that I am using. Whatever the default in there, the default layout is main. The default layout is layout main. Where is this? The layout basically maps to another folder in my view, which is this one. This one. Basically, this is a template. Okay. What this is a template. This is a template. We have there the sidebar. And then this is the no, not that one. The content basically is located here. That one. So the content, this content, whatever is in your actual view file that you want to render. This one, the content of this is, the content of that is this one. So basically, it's whatever inside is what it's whatever is it is whatever is inside in your view file. Okay, I'm placing them. So basically, okay, in my main layout, this is the template, everything the template, and then the placement of the content or the view file, you decide where it is. So this varies. Okay, when this layout is used, it's going to get whatever I am passing in the, whatever is the content of the view file, like this one. Let me go back here. That content will be sandwiched in here. Where is it now? In here. And I have other settings here like the menu. Okay, the menu items here. Okay, which just defined in here. When I go into my home/index, I have defined the menu items there. The menu items there corresponds to this. You can edit that. For example, if I go to somewhere else, I can edit what I want to be displayed in here. The principle is I'm just passing an array with elements of array. Each array element has this associative values. For label, it's what I want to display here. It's dashboard. And then the icon, this is using the Google Material icon. You can just go to Google Material icon. Google Material. It's already in the template. It's added. Okay, you can refer to this. This one, if I want to search, you just have search, small s, home, and so on and so forth. That's a keyword here. Because in in the main layout, the way I use them is just like this. Okay, this one. Class material icons MR3. Because in my main, I imported the Google fonts, the Google material icons. Okay. This is responsible for that. Okay. So going back here, I can just set everything. So I have 3 here. So I have 3 items there. And I can also set what is active or the one that is highlighted using the item active, and the other else are false. Okay, route is the, I'm going to call the route. Remember the route function I have in the global function. This is just it. This one, I'm just adding the base URL. Okay, so route, and then the other, the name of the route, or the address rather. This is the home. Okay, these are basically the routes that I define in my routes, these ones. So if you want to visit, if you want your user to visit a place, and you have to indicate them here. Okay, so let's go back. Where is it now? So that's one. And then basically the content of my index is this one. So my layout, let me refresh this one. My layout, my main layout is this. All right. But this portion, welcome to dashboard, these cards here are basically the content of my home index file. Okay. You just discovered that. Next, the next thing that I have here is let's now go maybe to user authentication. Okay, so that we can use the model now. User authentication. Let me close all of this. Okay, so for user authentication, I have to set there where is the login page. It's slash login. Slash login, just calling the user controller function login. Let's go there. Okay, here we have the function login here. The params is the request, like when I submit the form, it's going to be collected and accessible here. Okay, if I'm visiting this and I'm already logged in, then I'm going to be redirected to my home. Now, this is how I call the redirect that I showed you a while ago, which is in the controller. I use it this way because it is a static function, and this is how you do it: self and then double. Why self? Because this is just a subclass of controller. So instead of using, even though you can do it like this, okay, like that. No, yeah, controller, referring to that. But you can use self because this is just a child. That's just another way of doing it. I'm setting the layout simple. So let me log out. Simple. So I'm using the simple layout. The simple layout is in already. It's here in the views layout and then simple. It's just plain. Okay. Um, Let me just discuss this later on. So echo content, whatever this basically the content of the form basically will go there. Okay? Because going down there I am rendering the view, user, and then login. The content is basically the form. Okay, going back here. Okay, I'm creating a new object on my model. And then let's go to the form and let me show you what's the content of that. Here we have the conditional display of errors if it's set, and then forms. And for forms that are of method pos, you always add this one. This is the CSRF token generated in the controller. Um, yeah, this one. How do we get that there? It's basically in here. It's that one, this one, that one is generated in the construct, I think. No, it is generated when I call generate CSRF token, which I think I called it in, where is it? I think I forgot to do it. No, here. It's already generated when I constructed, or when I instantiated rather, this user controller. So that's just generated. So if I'm going to go back here and right click, I will see that, which is just this one. It's just used to verify, okay, that this is a valid request later on. Okay, when we compare uh, it with the use of the validate CSRF token, when somebody is trying to hack our system and that's not present, then it's going to not allow it, because in our validate we have here, just like there, like this one is just going to have the not found display. Okay, if it's trying to access this illegally rather than this one, because people can programmatically, or they can access our file, you can make requests other than just browsing or visiting this one. That's very possible. Now I'm using the symbol. I'm already discussed that. Now when I save this one, what does it do? I'm just checking if the params if not empty, meaning the login form is submitted. I am getting the content, I'm passing it to the model. The model is the user. These are just the property. Okay. How do we know the property? The model, basically, the user is a model. It resides in here. We have there the model. Again, it extends a model. The model basically is the base model. This is one. It contains all the functions that helps us. You just have to review this. I put some documentation here. Okay, it's self-explanatory, I think. Okay. Those are just basically ways to connect to the database. It's the thing that you do with SQL is basically encapsulated. You just have to edit this later on when you want a function that is not present here. It's up to you. I'm going to give you this and you can edit it yourself. Okay, so this is the model and it's being extended by the user model. So So with this one, basically in model, I automatically create properties basing from the content or the columns of my table. Okay, I have a function there to get the list of columns and convert them into properties. This one basically, okay, it's going to return all the list of my columns, and we also have there another way. I think it's just this one. Yeah, yeah, it is. Where is it now? It's this one. Map columns to attributes. The columns from my database are converted as property of my model. Now my user extends that. The user model extends that. Okay. And in here, I'm calling the parent constructor. I'm setting the table, which is the user, whatever the table name in your database is. And the primary key, you have to specify here. It's important. And I have some rules by default already. When you are creating or saving a new user, I make sure here that email, no, this is basically for login. Okay, when I save and I submit the login, when I validate it, I check the rules. I make sure that email and password satisfy this. Required, there should be it, and then email should be an email, and then required, and then minimum length is 6. Okay, and then going back here. Okay, so I assign them to the properties of the model and then I validate it. The validate function is a member of the main model. Basically, it's used to validate, okay, against the rule. You just look into it. It's here. There's a function here, validate. This one. So if I run this one, I'm going to check. It's going to check for errors. Save it in the property errors that will be used later on. Okay. And this is basically a group of columns. I mean of functions. I have them already here. Okay, for your benefit. You can just review this. If it is required, then if it's empty, then it's going to return an error. The description of that will be like this. Field is required. Okay, it's just going to do that. Basically, it's going to check whether, for example, I applied a required rule on a field and it did not pass this. Eventually, I'm going to call this one to get the error message, which is the field, whatever the field of that, whatever the field that is being checked currently, and then is required. Okay, the usage of this is like this. We cannot actually see them here because I already have front end rules on here. But if I do it like this, there will be this one. Password must be at least 6 characters. It will be validated. Okay. Here, that this is what is responsible on that. And then I'm going to authenticate. I'm just going to call the user login, which is in here. We have a login here. I'm going to just similar to what I discussed. Check whether the email is existing and the password is correct. If it's correct, then I'm going to create a session. The session is also in here. The session will just create a session variable with the details of the user. And then I'm going to redirect to the home. Else, I will have the errors. The errors will be retrieved and displayed in the model, in the view itself. In the view that will be displayed, as you can see in my user login, there are codes there to check whether there are errors or not. Like this one, the overall, yeah, this one, just this one. In the register, I have them also per field. You will just check that out. Okay, that's just one way, one usage. I'm not going to discuss everything already, but for form submission, you just check for when the params is set. Similar thing with the registration. You're just going to study this. I'm not going to discuss everything here. This is the registration form. It's just going to, you know, check when the form is submitted in the same function, no other function, because in my forms, like in my register, I did not place an action because it's just so it's just going to go to the same page when I click the submit. Okay, so go here, and then I'm going to process the content. Just assign to the properties. You just assign it. This is basically the name of the field in the form. I can also set rules. This I call the set rules here. Okay, to add more. Okay, rules like required, min length, and should be unique. It's in the model. It's in the model already, the validation checking. You just check on that. Even confirm password, I have that. You just check on that and study it yourself. Okay, and then um, let me show you the code. In my code, in the index.php, the okay, for the checking of whether the user is already login or not, I set here some guest routes. These are routes that the user can access even if not logged in. So I just have to set them here because if I'm going to remove this thing, I cannot access that if I'm just a guest, of course. But I have to be able to access this if I'm yet a guest. I just have to place them there because there are some checking here. Okay, because here it limits the user to access the page if he is not yet authenticated for routes that are not for guests and for routes that are for API. I'm going to discuss about API later on. Okay, now I have also the logout there, the user logout. You can find it here. The user logout, it's just another route. It's placed in here. That one. Okay. What does it do? It's just going to remove the session or clear the session and go back to the login again. Okay. By the way, you may be asking, how did I connect this to the database? Okay, for my model, it's where we connect to the database in the construct. Okay, I have here a database connection setting. And how I do it, I'm using the helper class database, which I have in my helpers class, this one. Okay, what is do? I'm reading the config DB. In my config DB, let me just hide that one. Config DB, I'm setting here my host, DB name, username, password, and even port. If you are using different port, you can actually do that and just alter. You can just alter the database class here to include that also. Okay, in here. I think it's just like this. Port. No, without that yet. Port. And then you also add here. The port is config. I'm just going to add that later on. Config port. This is just an array. This is just another way of string interpolation in PHP. It's a new thing. I haven't discussed this yet. Yeah, you place them in a curly brace. That one, then I'm going to just create port here to avoid error. In here, host, and then port. We all know that by default port is 3306. Okay, Save that one, then I will still have a, you know, valid connection. Let me try that one. It's still connecting. Okay. So you just have to edit this if you are using different port, especially if you use different port due to conflict. Okay, so I have there, and what does it do is just similar to what we do, connecting to the database using PDO, and I'm returning it using the get connection, and the model, okay, the model creates that database connection already when I instantiate it, when I call it, or I create a new object for it. Just that's it. This handles connection to the database. Okay, you just study that. Okay, the next thing is login, user authentication. We're done with that. Okay, there are a few things that I want to cover in the view files, especially the asset file. I use a JS file in the home sample API request sample. In here, I added a JS sample API request which I created in the public JS directory. This one. Okay. Yes, this one. Okay. Um, this is JavaScript. Okay, what does it do? In my layout file, already have a script there to include those files. If I have an asset list, if it's not blank, then I'm going to add them there for CSS and also for JavaScript below. Okay, JavaScript here, and on top is CSS. Okay. Let me go back to my this one. This one I'm calling the asset, which is a global function I showed you a while ago. This one. You can also add images here. I forgot to add it. You can, okay, everything here you can tweak, or later on you can find errors. You can just fix it. Okay, this is not perfect, guys. Yet, this is not perfect yet. Okay, so this is basically, it's like a semi-framework. When I say framework, it's already giving you backbone to create your project. You just have to edit it. So what you will do, for example, okay, typical scenario that you will do is like this. For example, you're going to create something for your product. Then I'm going to create a controller for that. So you have to separate it. So I'm going to have a product controller there, extending the controller. Do not forget to extend the controller. And then I'm going to have a separate view folder for that in lowercase format, product, small p in there, and store there all the view files related for my product controller. And I can also have a product model that extends the base model, which is this one, and I can place in my product model all the unique things that is necessary for product, okay, that we cannot find in the model, which is the general. It contains all the general properties for models, like connecting to the database and finding records in the database. Okay, and I am one also to show you here an example of a table that you can, base from. This is a working search. Okay, this is in my slash users. My slash users route, this one is served by a user controller users function, and it looks like this. It's just going to, where is it now? This one. Okay, what does it do? I am fetching from my database. Okay, this one is for my delete. It's basically a form. This is a form that sends the user ID or the primary key. If I'm going to delete this handles the search, which is a get request. And initially, if I'm going to load that, okay, of course, all of this two if are not, are just bypassed. I'm just going to have to search everything. User find all is in the model class, but of course it is um, extended by user. Find all just run select asterisk from user, and it's going to return an array of objects. The users will be passed the users variable. Remember the extract method, and in the user table, basically I am rendering the table. I am using the main layout, so I set it like that. So this one is the list of users that I pass as param in the view call, or view call, this one, that one. This one is converted into a variable, and I can now access in here as a variable, and I just iterated that and place it in a table. Okay, similar to all discussion. Okay, you can base from that. Okay, now I think I've covered almost everything. This one also, you just search. For example, search. Okay, it returns nothing. Let me go back again and search. It's going to restore it. Basically, that's being handled, taken or cared by this one. Okay. User filter. Filter is in the model class. So this is how you do it. Basically, every element is just new where clause. So basically, where username like or email. I'm just combining them together. So if you have more, then you can add more, like and, so like for example, column. But make sure this column are present. Column greater than, and then the value. Make sure you make it like that. Okay, but let me remove it because it's not existing. That's how it works. So you just have to study that. Then another thing, I already included here API. You can have API routes. API routes, basically, you are requesting for data in the JSON format or JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. It's basically a format that is used to transfer data between applications. Okay. So I have a sample here. It's this one. It's a sample request. Failed to fetch users, try to log in. So the authentication here is different from the previous authentication that I discussed. Now this one is authentication using token instead of session. Okay. So token basically are, when we say token, those are just characters, typically encrypted, non-readable. Okay, those are key. Okay, it's like a key that you save in here and you send it along with your other request, along with your other data during your request to authenticate your request, of course, so that you can be approved and get those data. Let me explain this to you. So basically this is blank. Okay, this is blank because the user is blank because I'm not allowed. Okay, I'm not allowed this one. I'm not allowed to fetch because I'm not authenticated. My key, my token or key has already been expired and it's not using the session. As you can see, I am logged in right now. And that is not being used in this request because I am using a token. Okay, as you can go here, you can inspect the network tab. I don't know if I showed you already how to inspect requests that are made using the fetch. I'm going to show you later on the fetch, which is similar. I don't know if you are already into it in your React Native. I am unauthorized because I don't have valid key, invalid or expired token. You just inspect your browser, and the implementation of that is like this. Okay, um let's see sample API request. The sample API request, let's check our route. Sample API request, that one. Okay, it's rendering the home controller. Sample API request. Let's go to our, let me close these ones and leave the open. We have their home sample API. It's rendering the home slash API sample, which is this one. This one, okay. All the data are coming or processed using the JavaScript. Okay. So I just added a sample API request here and let's do what it does. What it does, I have a form here. What I have here, if I'm going to click the button, I have here on submit. I'm not actually submitting it the usual way, but this is basically submits this content in the background. So as you can notice, if I'm going to click this login, let me have a invalid password. I'm going to click login there. As you can see, it's not refreshing. Okay, it's not refreshing. Invalid email or password. Is it refreshing? No, it's not refreshing. Okay, so the submission is done in the background. And to inspect that, this one, I have the request. It contains my form data. This is the request. I submitted that one and password that one. And it went here. And technically, it's wrong password. Okay. Now, so I click that. Let's inspect the JS file. It's in the public JS. So this is the logic of that. This one will be called when I click the button. And what is that? We are using fetch. I think I saw you using that already in your React Native. You are just making a request to API login. This one is another route. That another route is placed in the routes. This one. And all of your API routes, you just separate them, and by convention, you prefix them with API. Okay, in this that I did, it's important that you prefix it with API. These are routes that can be accessed via API. Okay, or via your mobile. Okay, or your JavaScript using fetch function. So it goes here. It's an API request, and what does it has? It's being processed by the API controller function users. Okay, let's go in look into that. This one, so I just created a different controller. You can basically create your own, but I just created API to distinguish it from the other controller. API and then login. So params, okay, it reminds me now that I have a code in my index entry point like this one. If the content type is JSON, there's a different way basically of getting the data from the request. I have to read it this way. File get input, PHP input. It contains the raw data, and that raw data will be decoded and converted into an array because it's a JSON string, a JSON data that is serialized or stringified, converted into a string. Place them there in the data and then place them in the param so that in my API controller, I can access them like this. This is just the field name of the form. Place them there, similar way to what I did with the login while ago. But what I do here is, if it's valid login, I called this also while ago in the user controller. In the login, yeah, this one I call it also in there because this just return the user object that when authenticated it's going to return an object. Where did I place there? This rather, it's in the user model. This one is just going to return the authenticated user. Otherwise, if it's wrong password, wrong email, it's going to return null, nothing. Okay, and if it's valid, if there is a user authenticated, then I'm going to generate a token. The token is generated by my helper class, which is located in this one. This JWT handler is just a property in there, which is instantiated with JWT handler, and where you can find that it's again in the helper class, this one. Okay, I'm not going to discuss this. Okay, but basically the purpose of this is just going to give you the purpose of this, it gives you functions that generate tokens, or it's like secret keys, a series of characters. You will see one later on. It's a long string and random, it's highly randomized. We have also algorithm there, and then we have a function to validate it if the token is validated, because in here there's also an expiry. This is equivalent to 1 hour. This is seconds, 3600 divided by 60 minutes. That's basically 1 hour. So you can change this. I have that set in my config. This one, This one, the JWT secret, no, not actually that. Sorry. I forgot to do that. It's not that one. Basically, you can change this one when you call it in your API controller. Where is that? API controller login while ago. This one. You can actually pass it here because it's not required. The default is 3601, or you can add to that. You can make days or weeks. It's up to you. It depends on the security requirement of your application. Okay, but 1 hour is just enough. So, but after 1 hour, the token will be invalidated. Okay, the validate will cancel it out or disregard. What do you call it? Reject it and return. Basically, where is the validate already? Is one. It's just going to invalidate it if it's already expired. So the token will be given back to the user during login or successful login. So I'm going to get that, okay, along with other things like a message, login successful, the token, the randomized string or token, and then the details of the user. And then I'm going to encode this, and I just have to echo it. Okay, I just have to echo it. I just have to echo it because it's already set here. Where is that? Yeah, I just have to echo that, a plain string. Okay, and it will work. So let's try logging in with correct password. This is correct password. If I'm going to click that, watch this one, there will be a new request that will come here. There you go. It's invalid. Let's try my password 12345 6. Login again. Login successful because I entered the correct password. This is the correct. 200 is successful. Okay. If I'll go here, okay, this is the request. This is the username. I mean the email and the password. The request content. These are the data that I submitted when I click login. And then response. This is coming from here. It gave me back a token, and this is a long string. I use that for subsequent requests. Okay, and then the user, which is already in the JSON format, and the user ID is null. Maybe I overlooked that. User, yeah, it's because it's this. Okay, I should place it in here. Authenticated users, similar to how I did it with what do you call this, the previous login while ago, like that, because it will return an authenticated user. And I'm just going to replace this one because no, not that one. Oops. Control J. This one, I'm going to use the authenticate. Oops, not that one again. I'm going to recopy it. Copy, paste it here. Control D to no, not, cannot do that. Control V, Control V, and then another Control V, and then Control V, just to make sure that I'm getting the actual data from the database, because this one returns the object that's whose data is coming from the database, rather than this one that's just coming from the form. Okay, and technically that did not set the primary key or the user ID field. Save that, and of course it's already authenticated. I'm just going to do that. I don't have a logout there yet. Logout basically is just deleting the key. I did not place it here yet. I just forgot it. Now this one in the logic in the JavaScript, let's look at that. Okay. In here, what it does do, after successful authentication, what just I do, I store them in the local storage. So local storage is just a storage mechanism in your browser. Okay. It's like the session thing. It's accept an ID and then the value itself. And then the value of that. rather. So I just made it JW token. I'm just going to use them for succeeding rather request the data, the token that's coming after successful login. Okay, and it's just going to alert login field if it's wrong password or wrong email. Now for the fetch user, basically I call it here. It's just going, as you can see while ago, it loaded the table. The fetch user is just again another request, which is just this one. Okay. Okay, what does it do? Okay, in my fetch setting, the headers, I'm going to place there the token. The token, this one. The token is coming from the local storage get item. So to read the content of your local storage, you use this one, local storage get item, and then the key, which I place in there. To save, you use the set item. Okay, place them there, and then in the header of the request, we don't have it here because it's not necessary. Of course, it should be content type application JSON along with the authorization prefix with the bearer string and then the key itself. Then if I'm going to inspect here in my request, I have there no payload because I'm not sending the data. But in the header, we can see in the authorization, I have there the bearer keyword, which I set, and then the token itself. So if I'm going to refresh this, that's going to have a request, which is this one. Okay, it's going to grant my request to the data or the content of the data because I have a valid token. Okay, so that's how it works basically, and you can use this already in your React Native project. Same process, if you want to give data, if you want to authenticate, then you have to call the authenticate first. Basically, it's here. The authenticate request is located in here. It's just going to retrieve the token using these scripts, that one. And then we use the validate token, passing that token coming from the request. Okay. If it's valid, then I'm going to have a error, basically a illegal response, a response that is illegal. Okay, otherwise I'm going to return payload. Okay, and I don't just care about it. I did not capture that and place it in a variable. Okay, because what we want here is just to make sure that the request is authenticated. Okay, and then I just use a final similar to what I did a while ago in the normal web, in the web format, and submit them in an array format. But of course, I have to convert them into an array. You cannot make, um, basically, you have to place them first in an array format, associative array, and then encode it. Okay, to convert into JSON, you use the JSON encode. And when you are retrieving a JSON from the JavaScript, you use the decode. Okay, you have to decode it. Okay, I think that's all for this. I'm just going to give you the code along with this video. And we're going to improve this. I forgot to add logout. Okay, I'm just going to add that in later discussion. So that's just it. And I'm going to give you the code. By the way, I have also the image upload here. I'm going to over my profile picture. It's going to let me change it. Okay, similar to our discussion before. You just select the image, open. Maybe we can have new image. Yes, this is the last thing I'm going to share with you. Profile image. Let me have a sample profile image. Maybe this one is good. Okay, let me just get that one. Save. Go back here. Browse. Pick that up. There. And there you go. It's automatically updated. Same process with what we did before. And I have that basically in the user controller, change profile picture. So same Same thing that I discussed before. You just read the comments, okay? And I already added here the delete. You use the unlink to change or delete the file if it's being replaced, okay? So I'm just going to give you this code. Okay.